The hum of the dry cleaning machines was a constant lullaby in Mr. Henderson's life. For 30 years, the rhythmic thrum and the crisp scent of freshly pressed fabric had been the backdrop to his days. Henderson's Hues and Habiliments wasn't just a business. It was his pride, a small, unassuming beacon of order and precision on a bustling Memphis street. He took immense satisfaction in his work, meticulously inspecting every garment, treating each stain as a personal challenge, every wrinkle a defeat. But for the past 10 years, one particular client had elevated his craft to an art form. Elvis Presley. Handling Elvis's wardrobe was a unique endeavor. It wasn't just suits and shirts. It was the jumpsuits, flamboyant, glittering creations that defied conventional cleaning methods. Mr. Henderson had developed specialized techniques, a secret alchemy of solvents and steam to keep the rhinestones sparkling and the silk-lined capes flowing perfectly. Elvis trusted him implicitly, and that trust meant the world to Mr. Henderson. He felt a quiet, almost familial bond with the king, a man who, despite his colossal fame, always remembered to ask about Mr. Henderson's wife, Martha, or his fishing trips. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a little past 3. Elvis was due to pick up a batch of stage clothes for an upcoming recording session, including his favorite peacock jumpsuit. Mr. Henderson was just applying a final polish to its shimmering scales when the phone rang, shattering the peaceful rhythm of the shop. He answered, his usual cheerful, "Henderson's Hues," dying on his lips as he recognized a voice on the other end. It was his daughter, Sarah, her voice trembling, ragged with unshed tears. "Daddy, it's Martha, Grandma Martha. She collapsed. The doctors say it's her heart. It's bad, Daddy, really bad. They need to fly her to Nashville for specialized surgery, and it's going to cost so much, and she needs it now." The phone felt heavy in Mr. Henderson's hand, suddenly too much to bear. The peacock jumpsuit, usually a source of quiet satisfaction, now seemed to mock him with its glittering demands. Martha, his Martha, the love of his life, the woman who had stood by him through thick and thin, the quiet strength behind his meticulous nature. Collapsed heart, Nashville. The words swirled into a terrifying vortex, sucking away his breath. "I'm coming, honey," he managed to choke out, his voice hoarse. "I'm coming right now." He hung up, his mind a jumble of panic and fear. The shop, the clothes, Elvis, all his responsibilities crashed down on him. How could he leave? But how could he not? Martha needed him. His loyal employees, a young man named Tommy and an older woman, Clara, were already clocking out for the day. He couldn't just close down the shop indefinitely. This surgery, Sarah had said, would be complicated. Perhaps a long recovery. Just as he was fumbling for his keys, his hand shaking so badly he dropped them, twice the shop door chimed. Elvis Presley walked in, a wide smile on his face, flanked by a couple of his usual entourage, Red West and Joe Esposado. Elvis was dressed casually today in a denim shirt and jeans, but even so, his presence filled the small space, radiating energy and charm. "Hey, Mr. Henderson," Elvis boomed, his voice warm and friendly. "Hope I'm not too early for that peacock beauty. Got a session tonight, and I need to feel like $1,000,000. Mr. Henderson stared at him, his face pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of grief and apology. The words caught in his throat. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Elvis, ever perceptive, immediately noticed the change. "Mr. Henderson, you all right there, sir? You look like you just saw a ghost." He took a step closer, his voice softening. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" Mr. Henderson finally found his voice, though it was barely a whisper. "Elvis, Mr. Presley, I am so sorry. I can't, Martha, my wife. She's had a heart attack, critical. They're flying her to Nashville. I have to go now." "Close. Your clothes. I haven't. I just got the call. I have to close the shop. I don't know when I'll be back. I'm so sorry." He gestured vaguely at the peacock jumpsuit, hanging like an accusation on the rack. Elvis didn't even glance at the jumpsuit. His focus was entirely on Mr. Henderson. His face, usually so expressive, settled into a mask of deep concern. He reached out and gently placed a hand on Mr. Henderson's trembling shoulder. "Mr. Henderson," he said, his voice surprisingly soft, almost tender. "Forget the clothes. Forget the shop. Your wife, Martha, she's all that matters right now. You go to her. Don't worry about a single thing here." Mr. Henderson looked at him, tears welling in his eyes. He expected impatience, frustration, perhaps an offer of a large sum of money, but not this immediate raw empathy. "But your recording session, the jumpsuit," Mr. Henderson stammered, still overwhelmed by his sense of duty. Elvis squeezed his shoulder again. "Mr. Henderson, if I have to show up in my pajamas, I'll show up in my pajamas. Do you take care of your family? That's an order from the king, all right?" He even managed a faint, reassuring smile. "Now go on. You look like you need to be with her." He then turned to Red and Joe. "Red Joe, get Mr. Henderson's car pulled up to the front. Make sure he's got everything he needs, and don't let him worry about locking up. We'll handle that." Mr. Henderson, still in a daze, stumbled towards the door, muttering his thanks. He paused, one hand on the door frame, and looked back at Elvis, who stood among the silent dry-cleaning machines, a giant of a man dwarfing the delicate fabrics. "Thank you, Elvis," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." Elvis simply nodded, his eyes filled with a quiet understanding. As Mr. Henderson rushed out the door, Elvis watched him go. The immediate crisis of his own wardrobe completely forgotten. His mind instead was already churning, not about how he'd get his clothes clean, but about Mr. Henderson, the loyal, dependable man who had always taken care of him. Now Elvis knew it was his turn to take care of Mr. Henderson, and he had a feeling that just saying "don't worry about it" wouldn't be enough, not nearly enough. The silence in Henderson's Hues and Habiliments was thick. Once, Mr. Henderson had sped away. Elvis stood for a moment, the faint scent of solvents and fresh laundry filling his nostrils. It was an unfamiliar smell in his world of perfumes and stage smoke. Red and Joe returned, having seen Mr. Henderson off. "He was pretty shook up," Red said, running a hand through his hair. "Poor guy." "Yeah, huh?" Elvis murmured, his gaze drifting over the meticulously arranged racks of clothes. "None of them his own. Martha's a good woman, always sends me the best pecan pies around Christmas." Joe Esposito, ever the practical one, cleared his throat. "So, about your jumpsuits, boss. The recording session is tonight? What are we gonna do? Nobody else knows how to handle those things like Mr. Henderson does." Elvis turned, his brow furrowed. Not really. He was thinking about Mr. Henderson's pale, drawn face, the raw fear in his eyes. He paced a small circle on the polished linoleum floor, a restless energy building inside him. "We send him money, of course," Elvis stated, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Whatever Martha needs, we make sure they get it. No questions asked? Call Colonel Parker. Tell him to arrange a substantial transfer immediately. Tell him it's a priority." Red nodded. "Will do, but that doesn't solve the clothes situation. You can't go on stage in a regular suit for a recording session, not with the new material you're laying down. It sets the mood, you know." Elvis knew. He looked at his hands, then at a large industrial dry cleaning machine, its dials and gauges looking like alien hieroglyphs. "No, it doesn't solve the clothes," he agreed, his voice thoughtful. "And you know what just sending money doesn't feel like enough." Joe raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Not enough, boss. We're talking serious cash, enough to cover any medical bills, travel, whatever they need." "It's about more than money, Joe?" Elvis said, turning to face them, his eyes distant, as if seeing something beyond the walls of the dry cleaner. "Mr. Henderson Piffer T. Major Berwai Prius. He's been here for me, for Graceland, for years. Hio Golway. Ku Haitaske." They knew Elvis's heart was bigger than his waistline, but this level of personal involvement was different. "So, what are you thinking, Red asked cautiously. Elvis stopped pacing, his eyes gleaming with a sudden audacious idea. He looked at the dry cleaning machines, then back at his jumpsuits hanging on the empty racks. "Trusted me with the keys, didn't he?" he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "He trusts me with his shop. And if he's not here to clean the clothes..." He paused for dramatic effect. Red and Joe braced themselves. "Then we clean the clothes," Elvis announced, his voice filled with a mischievous determination. "We run Henderson's Hues and Habiliments until Mr. Henderson gets back." A stunned silence filled the room. Joe Esposito burst out laughing. A genuine booming laugh of disbelief. "You're joking, right? You, the king of rock and roll, doing laundry. You've never ironed a shirt in your life." "There's a first time for everything, Joe," Elvis retorted, his smile unwavering. "And it's not just me, it's us. We'll figure it out. Mr. Henderson's a genius at this, but it can't be rocket science, can it? Besides, I've watched him enough times. He's got notes, right? He's organized." Red, while equally surprised, started to see the logic in Elvis's unique brand of loyalty. "I don't know. Those jumpsuits are pretty delicate. Remember that one with the golden phoenix? If you shrink that, Colonel Parker will have a fit." As if on cue, the phone in Elvis's hand vibrated. It was Colonel Parker, no doubt, already calling about the money transfer for Mr. Henderson. Elvis put it on speaker. "Elvis, my boy, I've just authorized the transfer for your dry cleaner. Generous." "Yes, very generous. Good PR." "Good PR?" Colonel Parker's voice was a gravelly rumble. "Now, about your jumpsuits. For tonight's session, have they been picked up? We can't have the king looking anything less than spectacular." Elvis cleared his throat. "Colonel," he began, trying to sound casual. "About the dry cleaning, Mr. Henderson's shop is, well, it's temporarily closed. Family emergency." "Closed?" Colonel Parker's voice rose in alarm. "But the jumpsuits, who will handle them? We can't send them to just anyone. They require precise care. This is a disaster." "Don't worry, Colonel," Elvis said, trying to suppress a grin. "I've got it handled. Red Joe and I are going to take care of things." "You're going to take care of things?" Colonel Parker sounded utterly baffled. "What does that mean exactly? You're not suggesting you wouldn't possibly be contemplating. You're the king of rock and roll. Elvis, you don't do laundry. It's bad for the image. Terribly, terribly bad." "Colonel, this isn't about image," Elvis said, his voice firm, all traces of humor gone. "This is about a good man who needs help. Mr. Henderson takes care of my clothes now. I'm going to take care of his business. End of discussion. I'll see you at the studio tonight and I'll be wearing clean clothes. You can count on it." He ended the call before Colonel Parker could argue further, then tossed the phone onto a counter. He looked at Red and Joe, a determined glint in his eye. "All right, fellas, Operation Dry Clean is a go with. There must be some kind of manual, right? Or at least a little book of secrets." Red shook his head, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You're crazy. You know that." "Maybe," Elvis said, picking up a stray hanger, "but crazy for a good cause, don't you think? Come on, let's find out how tough this dry cleaning business really is." He walked towards a large, complex-looking machine, a gleam of something akin to excitement in his eyes. It was going to be an experience, that much was certain. And maybe, just maybe, they could pull this off. The first challenge was simply figuring out how to turn everything on. Henderson's Hues and Habiliments so orderly and efficient, under Mr. Henderson's command, felt like a labyrinth of silent, intimidating machinery. Elvis, Red, and Joe stood in the middle of the shop, surrounded by industrial-sized washers, towering dryers, and a behemoth of a dry cleaning unit, its various nozzles and pipes looking like a mad scientist's creation. "Okay," Elvis declared, rubbing his hands together. "First rule of business. find the power switch. It took them a solid 5 minutes of fumbling around before Red finally located a master breaker panel hidden behind a stack of clean towels. With a satisfying thunk, the fluorescent lights flickered on, buzzing to life and illuminating the shop in a harsh, bright glow. The machines remained dormant, however, waiting for more specific instructions. "All right, E," Joe said, eyeing the rows of clothes waiting to be cleaned. "Where do we start? This place smells like, well, it smells like a dry cleaner. Not sure I can tell what's what." Elvis walked around, observing everything. "Mr. Henderson is a man of order. He's got to have notes, something." He peered at the counter, then behind it. Aha! Nestled neatly next to the cash register beneath a small desk lamp was a sturdy, leather-bound ledger. On its cover, embossed in elegant gold script, were the words, "Henderson's Hues and Habiliments. Operating Procedures and Client Notes." Elvis opened it reverently. The pages inside were filled with Mr. Henderson's precise, neat handwriting. There were instructions for various fabrics, tips for stain, removal, and most importantly, a dedicated section titled "The King's Collection." "This is it, boys," Elvis said, excitement bubbling in his voice. "Our dry cleaning Bible." He flipped to his section. "All right, let's see. Peacock jumpsuit. Handle with extreme care. Hand spot clean sequins with proprietary for low heat, delicate cycle. Special pressing required for cape structure." He trailed off, his enthusiasm dimming slightly. "Proprietary solution B. Cycle 4. This is more complicated than I thought." "Told ya, E," Red mumbled, looking dubiously at a pile of dark stage pads. "All right, no fear," Elvis countered, adjusting his imaginary crown. "We start simple. Let's not tackle the peacock yet. Let's find something basic, like a plain white shirt. Mr. Henderson must have some of those around." They searched and found a basket labeled "Regular Wash and Press." Elvis picked out a simple cotton shirt. "All right, step 1, identify the material cotton." "Okay, the book says cotton is pretty straightforward. Wash, warm, tumble dry, medium heat." They located a washing machine, figuring out the detergent dispenser was the next hurdle. They poured in what looked like a reasonable amount, then loaded the shirt. Elvis pressed a button, and with a groan and a gurgle, the machine rumbled to life. "Look at that!" Elvis exclaimed, genuinely impressed. "We're cleaning." Their first attempt at operating the machines was a mix of mild success and hilarious blunders. They accidentally put too much starch in a pair of regular pants, turning them into stiff, unwearable cardboard. Elvis almost tripped over a rolling laundry cart, sending a cascade of clean sheets tumbling to the floor. Red somehow managed to entangle his arm in a commercial ironer's feeder belt, leading to a frantic rescue by Joe. "This is harder than learning a new guitar chord," Elvis grumbled at one point, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. He was used to commanding stages, not cleaning clothes. But he was also fiercely determined, kept referring to Mr. Henderson's ledger, meticulously following the instructions for each step. As the evening wore on, the initial novelty faded, replaced by genuine hard work. The shop was warm from the machines, the air thick with the smell of detergents. They worked methodically, each taking on a task. Elvis surprisingly developed a knack for the large industrial press, his strong hands expertly guiding garments into place. He found a rhythm, a certain satisfaction in the process. "Okay," Elvis announced after several hours, holding up a perfectly pressed, crisply folded dress shirt that wasn't his. "First perfect one, and it's not mine. Mr. Henderson will be proud of that," Red grunted, leaning against a dryer. "My back is proud of that. This is honest work. I might actually start appreciating the cost of dry cleaning now." "That's the point, isn't it?" Elvis said, looking around the shop. "Mr. Henderson puts his heart and soul into this. It's more than just a job to him, and he deserves to know we respect that and him." They had made a dent in the general laundry, but the King's Collection lay untouched, shimmering mockingly from its designated racks. Elvis knew the real challenge was still ahead, the delicate, expensive, irreplaceable stage clothes. He walked over to the peacock jumpsuit, running his hand over its sequined surface. "All right, old friend," he whispered to the silent garment. "Tomorrow we tackle you. We'll make Mr. Henderson proud and we'll make sure you're ready for the spotlight." As the clock ticked past midnight, Elvis decided they'd done enough for one night. He flipped through Mr. Henderson's ledger one last time, making a mental note of the proprietary solutions and the complex cycles. He even noticed a small personal note tucked into the back. A faded photograph of Mr. Henderson and Martha, beaming at the camera arm in arm. Elvis carefully placed the ledger back. He looked at the quiet shop now, with a few more perfectly folded clothes awaiting pickup. It felt less alien now, a little more welcoming. He had stepped into Mr. Henderson's shoes, literally, and the responsibility felt heavy, but also deeply fulfilling. This wasn't just about getting his clothes clean, it was about honoring a friend. The next morning, Elvis and his trusty crew were back at Henderson's Hues and Habiliments before dawn. Fooled by strong coffee and a stack of greasy donuts, they faced the real challenge. The dazzling, heavy, and notoriously difficult to clean jumpsuits loomed large, almost mocking them with their intricate designs. "All right," Elvis declared, standing before a rack holding the famous American Eagle jumpsuit, its majestic wings intricately embroidered with thousands of gold threads. The book says, "American Eagle, hand wash only with gentle cleanser air, dry flat. Do not iron directly on embroidery, steam with extreme caution." "Hand wash," Joe exclaimed, looking at the massive garment. "That thing weighs a ton even when it's dry. When it's wet, it'll be like wrestling a soggy bear." They found a large industrial sink in the back, the kind used for delicate items. Elvis surprisingly took charge. He carefully filled the sink with lukewarm water, adding a tiny amount of the specified gentle cleanser. Then, with a deep breath, he slowly lowered the American Eagle jumpsuit into the water. The fabric instantly absorbed the water, becoming heavier and more unwieldy. "Whoa!" Elvis grunted, struggling to support the weight. "This ain't no t-shirt, that's for sure." As he gently kneaded the fabric, a sudden horror dawned on him. A faint golden tinge was beginning to spread in the water. Guys," he said, his voice laced with panic. "Is this supposed to be happening? Is the gold bleeding?" Indeed, the intricate gold thread was starting to lose its vibrancy, and the water was taking on a faint metallic sheen. "Oh man," Red muttered, "you're melting the eagle, Ian." Elvis snatched the jumpsuit out of the water, his heart sinking. He looked at the instruction again. "Hand wash only with gentle cleanser." What had gone wrong? He saw a tiny note scrawled in the margin, almost imperceptible. "Test small hidden area first for color fastness on new materials." Darn it. Elvis slapped his forehead. "I missed the test part. Mr. Henderson is so precise." He wrote it almost too small. They quickly rinsed the jumpsuit and laid it flat on a clean table. The damage wasn't catastrophic, but a faint dullness had indeed settled on some of the gold threads. It was a disheartening setback. "Okay," Elvis said, taking a deep breath. "Lesson learned no more. Winging it, we follow every single instruction, every single one." They moved on to a simpler but still delicate item, a custom-made silk scarf studded with small crystal beads. Elvis meticulously followed the instructions for silk, carefully hand-washing it. But when it came time to dry, Joe, trying to be helpful, suggested, "Let's just put it in the regular dryer on low heat. It'll be faster." Elvis hesitated, then remembered the instruction. Air, dry, flat. But he was tired and the pile of clothes seemed endless. "All right, Joe, just for a minute, on the lowest setting." A few minutes later, a loud metallic rattling sound came from the dryer. They rushed to open it. The silk scarf had shrunk to half its size, and several of the crystal beads had melted and fused into the delicate fabric. It was ruined. Elvis stared at the crumpled, shrunken mess in his hand, a wave of frustration washing over him. "Darn it, darn it, darn it, darn it," he yelled, throwing the scarf down. Why is this so hard? This is ridiculous. I'm the king of rock and roll. I shouldn't be destroying my own clothes." Joe and Red wisely kept silent, letting him vent. After a moment, Elvis ran a hand through his hair, taking a deep, calming breath. He picked up the ruined scarf, his expression softening. "No," he said quietly, "not hard. It's precise. It requires patience and respect for the material. Something I'm just now learning." He looked at the stack of jumpsuits still waiting. "We have to do this right for Mr. Henderson." They started over with renewed focus. They learned to identify different types of stains and which proprietary solution to use. They mastered the subtle art of the industrial press, learning how much steam and pressure to apply without scorching or stretching. They learned to carefully check for loose beads and mend tiny tears before cleaning hours turned into a full day. Then another. They took shifts, grabbing quick naps on folding chairs. Elvis, despite his initial frustration, became incredibly focused. He approached each garment as a puzzle, a challenge to his dexterity and concentration. He even started to develop a strange sort of pride in his newfound skills. He wasn't just washing clothes. He was preserving history, piece by painstaking piece. The sight of Elvis Presley, the epitome of glamour, meticulously hand-scrubbing a sequin jumpsuit, was an absurd and heartwarming spectacle. He hummed gospel tunes as he worked, occasionally pausing to offer a spontaneous impromptu dance move, much to Red and Joe's amusement. By the end of the second day, a small mountain of impeccably clean, pressed, and perfectly folded jumpsuits and costumes stood proudly on a separate rack. The American Eagle, despite its slight dullness, was still magnificent. The peacock jumpsuit, their final and most daunting challenge, gleamed under the shop lights. Its colors vibrant, its sequins shimmering without a single stain. Elvis stood back, surveying their handiwork, a deep sense of accomplishment settling over him. He still had the recording session tonight, and now, thanks to their efforts, he would be wearing a pristine jumpsuit, but more importantly, they had done Mr. Henderson's work. They had kept his business. "We actually did it, you know. This might be harder than a world tour, but somehow it feels just as important." He smiled, a genuine, humble smile. He had faced his own personal laundry Everest, and he had conquered it. And in doing so, he had learned a profound respect for the quiet, diligent man who had always done this work for him. Word travels fast in Memphis, especially when it involves Elvis Presley. It started as a whisper, a rumor passed from one shopkeeper to another. "Did you hear? Elvis Presley's been seen at Henderson's dry cleaners." And not just drop-in-oated. He's working there, cleaning clothes himself. Initially, the news was met with disbelief, then a wave of amusement. The king doing laundry. It was a caricature begging to be drawn. But then, as the story gained traction and people started driving by Henderson's Hues and Habiliments, they saw Elvis's pearl-white Cadillac parked outside late into the night, and occasionally glimpses of Elvis himself. This wasn't a PR stunt. This was real. The local news station, always hungry for an Elvis story, caught wind of it. A young reporter, Sally Mae Jenkins, and her cameraman discreetly set up across the street. They didn't see Elvis cleaning, but they saw him emerge, looking tired but determined and greeting a small crowd that had gathered. "Elvis, is it true you're running the dry cleaner?" Sally Mae called out, microphone in hand. Elvis paused, then walked towards them, a slight smile on his face. He didn't deny it. "Mr. Henderson, he's a good man," Elvis said, his voice serious. Not his usual Menadic stage persona. "His wife, Martha, she's very sick. They're in Nashville right now, fighting for her. Mr. Henderson's been cleaning my clothes for years, and he's never let me down. He's family, and when family needs help, you help them. Simple as that." He didn't make it about himself. He made it about Mr. Henderson. He told them about Mr. Henderson's dedication, his meticulous care, his silent service, painted a picture of a humble, hard-working man facing a devastating crisis. The story that aired that night wasn't about Elvis Presley, king of rock and roll, doing laundry. It was about Elvis Presley, loyal friend, standing up for a neighbor, inspiring a community. The segment ended with a plea. Mr. Henderson and his family need all the support they can get, and Memphis responded. The next morning, when Elvis and his crew arrived, they found a small line of people forming outside the shop. Not fans seeking autographs, but neighbors with their own bags of laundry. "Mr. Presley," an elderly woman said, pushing a basket of shirts forward. "I heard about Mr. Henderson. He's cleaned my curtains for 20 years. If you're helping him, I want my business to stay right here." A young couple brought in their wedding dress. "Mr. Henderson did our wedding clothes. We want to support him too." Then came the food. Platters of fried chicken, homemade biscuits, pecan pies, just like Martha used to make. "For you, boys," a woman said, pressing a warm casserole into Elvis's hands. "You're doing good work." The outpouring of support was overwhelming. Elvis, touched by the genuine warmth of the community, decided to open the shop to the public, just as Mr. Henderson normally would. He put up a sign, "Henderson's Hues and Habiliments," still open in support of the Henderson family. He made it clear that all proceeds from the dry cleaning would go directly to Mr. Henderson. Elvis became the unofficial manager, greeting customers, taking orders, and directing traffic, all while Red and Joe continued to meticulously clean the garments. He was patient, kind, and genuinely interested in each person's story about Mr. Henderson. "Can I help sort these shirts, Mr. Presley?" a teenager volunteered, looking eager. "I can sweep the floors," another offered. "I used to work in a laundry back in the day," an older gentleman chimed in. "I can show you how to work that pressing machine, son." Suddenly, Henderson's Hues and Habiliments wasn't just a dry cleaner. It was a hub of community spirit. People came not just to drop off clothes, but to chat, to offer encouragement, to be a part of something bigger. The sounds of the machines were now accompanied by the murmur of conversation, the laughter of children, and the occasional burst of Elvis's own singing as he hummed along to a tune in his head. He even took a moment to call Colonel Parker. "Colonel," he said, holding the phone away from the bustling sounds of the shop. "You asked about the image. Well, the image is that the people of Memphis are incredible. They're rallying around a good man, and I'm proud to be a part of it." He could almost hear the colonel spluttering on the other end, but Elvis didn't care. This experience was grounding him in a way his fame rarely did. Standing in a dry, cleaner covered in lint, taking orders from everyday people, he felt a profound connection to the life he had left behind. The simple, honest work his family had known. It reminded him of what truly mattered, not the jumpsuits or the record sales, but the bonds of friendship and the power of a community coming together. He looked around the busy shop, filled with the hum of machines and the laughter of people, and knew that Mr. Henderson, wherever he was, would be proud. More than proud, he would be deeply moved. And that, to Elvis, was more important than any platinum record. While Elvis and his makeshift crew toiled in the dry cleaner, keeping the physical operation afloat, Elvis was also moving mountains behind the scenes. He wasn't just relying on community donation. He understood the crippling costs of medical emergencies, especially one as severe as Martha Henderson's. From a small, dusty office in the back of Henderson's Hues and Habiliments, a rotary phone clutched in his hand. Elvis made calls that could change lives. He spoke to his personal attorneys, his financial advisors, and most frequently to Colonel Parker. Colonel Elvis's voice was firm, leaving no room for negotiation. "I want the best for Martha Henderson. I want her in the best facility with the best doctors, whatever it takes. This is coming out of my personal funds. Don't worry about the optics. Just make it happen." Colonel Parker, despite his initial protests about image, was a shrewd operator. When Elvis put his foot down, Parker knew better than to argue. He contacted a network of specialists, pulling strings, making sure Martha received immediate and top-tier care in Nashville. He even arranged for Sarah, Mr. Henderson's daughter, to have comfortable accommodation near the hospital. Elvis insisted on anonymity for his direct financial contributions. "Mr. Henderson doesn't need to know it's from me, not directly," he told Joe. "He's a proud man. Just make sure the bills are paid, make sure they have no worries except for Martha's recovery. He received regular updates from Sarah, who, overwhelmed with gratitude, couldn't figure out who was quietly paying for everything. "Daddy, the hospital said everything is covered," she'd whispered over the phone to Mr. Henderson. "Someone anonymous, an angel." One evening, after another long day of cleaning, Elvis finally found a moment of quiet. He decided to call Mr. Henderson directly. He wanted to hear the man's voice, to offer more than just financial aid, to offer emotional support. Mr. Henderson answered on the third ring, his voice tired but relieved. "Hello, Mr. Henderson. It's Elvis." A stunned silence on the other end. "Elvis. Good heavens, Mr. Presley, I didn't expect. I'm so sorry about everything. Martha is. She's stable. The surgery was a success, but it's a long road ahead." "Don't you worry about the clothes, Mr. Henderson," Elvis said, his voice gentle. "They're fine. The shop's fine. We've got it handled. We've been keeping things humming along in the community here in Memphis. They've really stepped up, amazing folks." Mr. Henderson let out a shaky breath. You mean you've been at the shop doing the work?" His voice was thick with disbelief and emotion. "Mr. Presley, you shouldn't have. You're the king. This is too much." "Nonsense, Mr. Henderson." Elvis chuckled softly. "You think you're the only one who knows how to operate a dry cleaning machine. Took a little learning, but we got there besides." Elvis continued, his voice softening further. "You're more than just a dry cleaner. To me, sir, you're a friend, a good man, and when good people are in trouble, you lend a hand." Paused, then asked, "How's Martha really doing? Are you getting enough rest? Are the doctors saying she'll make a full recovery?" Mr. Henderson's voice cracked. She's a fighter, Elvis. She really is. And the doctors, they're amazing. And someone has taken care of all the bills, all of them. It's like a miracle. I don't know who it is, but they saved us." Elvis stayed silent, letting Mr. Henderson express his overwhelming gratitude, knowing that his anonymous generosity was making a difference. "That's wonderful to hear, Mr. Henderson," Elvis finally said, his voice warm. "Just focus on Martha. You hear me? We'll hold down the fort here. No rush to come back. Take all the time you need. Your family comes first, always." As Elvis hung up the phone, a profound sense of satisfaction washed over him. It wasn't the roar of the crowd or the flash of cameras or the cheers of adoring fans. It was the quiet, heartfelt relief in Mr. Henderson's voice. It was knowing he had alleviated a crushing burden for a good man. He thought about his own humble beginnings, the struggles his family faced in Tupelo and then Memphis. He remembered how his mama Gladys would make sure everyone in their neighborhood had enough to eat, even when they barely did themselves. That spirit of compassion, of looking out for your own, was deeply ingrained in him. This experience, scrubbing stains and pressing pants, talking to ordinary people about their ordinary lives, felt more real, more grounding than anything he'd done in months. Reinforced his belief that true royalty wasn't about crowns and castles, but about the size of your heart and the willingness to serve others. He was the king of rock and roll, yes, but more importantly, he was a man capable of incredible kindness. And that, he realized, was the legacy he truly wanted to leave behind. The third day of Operation Dry Clean dawned with a clear mission. Get all of Elvis's clothes pristine and ready, and then make sure Henderson's Hues and Habiliments was in better shape than when Mr. Henderson left. Elvis, Red, and Joe, now seasoned dry cleaning veterans, tackled the remaining garments with practiced efficiency. They had developed a surprising camaraderie, a shared sense of purpose. Elvis hummed gospel tunes. Joe whistled show tunes, and Red surprisingly recited lines from old movies. The shop, which had once felt like an alien environment, now felt almost like a second home. The last of the jumpsuits, a white one with an elaborate chain motif, was carefully steamed and pressed. Elvis personally checked every rhinestone, every stitch, making sure it was perfect. He held it up, admiring their handiwork. "Look at that, boys," he said proudly. Not a single crease, not a spot, Mr. Henderson would approve. They then turned their attention to the rest of the shop. They had collected an impressive number of regular customers' clothes over the past few days, all laundered and pressed with the same meticulous care. They applied to Elvis's Warzone nature boat. We're giving Mr. Henderson a fresh start when he gets back. They swept and mopped every inch of the shop from the front counter to the back rooms. They wiped down every machine, polishing the chrome and cleaning the lint traps. They even tackled a leaky faucet in the bathroom using a wrench from the small toolbox Mr. Henderson kept under the counter. Elvis, noticing a faded paint job on one of the walls, even sent Joe out to buy a fresh can of cream-colored paint. Soon, Elvis, usually seen with a microphone or guitar, was wielding a paintbrush, carefully touching up the peeling sections. Red and Joe joined in, and soon the small shop was filled with the scent of fresh paint, mingling with the clean laundry smell. You know, Red said, stepping back to admire their painting, you could almost make a living doing this, the king of dry cleaning, the king of paint. Elvis laughed. I think I'll stick to music, Red. This is hard work, but it's good work. By late afternoon, the transformation was complete. Henderson's Hues and Habiliments was spotless. The floors gleamed, the machines hummed quietly, and the fresh paint made the space feel brighter, more inviting. All the clothes, Elvis's included, were perfectly ornate. Before they left, Elvis did one last thing. He found a fresh piece of paper and a pen. He wrote a short, heartfelt note. Dear Mr. Henderson, your shop is shining, your clothes are ready, and your customers have been taken care of. Memphis really showed up for you. We all did. Don't worry about a thing. Focus on Martha. That's all that matters, your friend Elvis. He placed the note on the counter right next to the ledger. Then from his wallet he took out a thick wad of cash. Not just the money he'd promised, but also a considerable sum that had been quietly donated by fans and community members, all anonymously collected for Mr. Henderson. He left it under the note tucked safely beneath the ledger. This was for the immediate needs, the little things, the peace of mind. Elvis took one last look around the now pristine shop. The hum of the machines was different now. It wasn't alien or intimidating. It was a gentle, comforting sound of a job well done, of a promise kept. He had stepped out of his world of fame and into the humble shoes of a hard-working man, and he had emerged with a profound sense of purpose. All right, boys, Elvis said, patting Joe on the shoulder. Let's get these clothes to Graceland. I've got a recording session to hit. Picked up his clean jumpsuits, now looking even more magnificent. As they locked the door behind them, the soft glow of the internal lights cast long shadows through the glass. Henderson's Hues and Habiliments stood ready, a silent testament to an unexpected act of kindness, waiting for its true owner to return and discover the incredible secret. The drive back to Memphis felt surreal for Mr. Henderson. Martha was stable, recovering slowly but surely. The surgery had been a success, and the anonymous benefactor had insured. Every expense was covered. He felt a profound, overwhelming gratitude, mingled with a gnawing anxiety about his shop. 3 days, 3 full days. He had been gone, his small business, his life's work, must be in shambles. He imagined piles of unclean clothes, angry customers, and the general chaos of neglect. He had called Clara and Tommy, his employees, but they hadn't answered their phones. A cold dread settled in his stomach. As his old sedan turned onto his street, Mr. Henderson braced himself. He expected to see a dark, closed-up shop, perhaps a temporarily closed sign collecting dust. But what he saw made him blink, then rub his eyes, convinced he was hallucinating from exhaustion. Henderson's Hues and Habiliments wasn't dark. It was gleaming. The fluorescent lights inside were on, casting a soft, welcoming glow. The windows were spotless, sparkling. The front door, usually a bit grimy, looked newly scrubbed. And through the glass, he could see racks of perfectly organized clothes. Hanging in neat rows, he slowly, cautiously parked his car. His heart hammered in his chest. Was this a dream? Had someone else taken over his shop? He got out, his legs feeling wobbly, and walked towards the entrance. The familiar chime above the door rang as he pushed it open. The scent of fresh paint mingled with the crisp, clean smell of laundry. The floors were so clean he could see his reflection. Every machine was polished. The counter was clear, not a single piece of paper out of place. It was immaculate. It was more than immaculate. It was better than he had left it. "Hello," he called out, his voice hoarse. No one answered. He walked deeper into the shop, his eyes scanning every detail. The machines were off but ready. A small pile of clean folded customer clothes sat on a table, neatly labeled. He checked his own workbench in the back, spotless. His tools organized, he even peeked into the small, dusty office. His ledger was right where he'd left it, next to the small desk lamp, and beneath it, a thick wad of cash. Secured with a rubber band, he picked it up, his breath catching in his throat. It was far more money than he'd ever had in his small business then. He saw it, a piece of paper on top of the cash. He unfolded it with trembling fingers. "Dear Mr. Henderson, we've got everything handled here. Your shop is shining, your clothes are ready, and your customers have been taken care of. Memphis, really. Don't worry about a thing. Focus on Martha. That's all that matters. Your friend Elvis." Mr. Henderson's vision blurred. Elvis Presley. He had done this. King of rock and roll had cleaned his shop, kept his business running, rallied the community, and paid for Martha's medical bills. The anonymous angel, it had been Elvis. He leaned against the counter, sudden from tears desoppable. Not tears of sorrow, but a profound, bone-deep gratitude. He had been terrified, lost, facing ruin. And Elvis, the superstar, had stepped in. Not with a grand gesture from afar, but with his own hands, his own sweat, his own time. He remembered Elvis's words on the phone. "You're more than just a dry cleaner to me, sir. You're a friend, a good man." Mr. Henderson had always prided himself on his quiet diligence, his unwavering reliability. He had never expected such a magnificent return for his humble service. He had just been doing his job, being himself, and the king, in turn, had simply been himself. A kind, generous, loyal man with a heart as big as his voice. He looked around his shop again, now with new eyes. It wasn't just clean, it felt love. Every polished surface, every organized rack, every fresh patch of paint spoke of care, of respect. It wasn't just a business that had been saved. It was his dignity, his peace of mind, his entire future. He thought of Martha slowly recovering in Nashville. He thought of his daughter Sarah, relieved of the financial burden. He thought of his own terror and despair, now replaced by a soaring lightness. Mr. Henderson walked over to the back room where Elvis's jumpsuits were usually kept. Sure enough, there they were, perfectly cleaned and pressed, hanging on their designated racks, waiting to be picked up for the next show. Peacock jumpsuit shimmered under the light, its sequins sparkling as if winking at him. He gently touched one of the costumes, the fabric soft and clean under his calloused fingers. Elvis Presley. The king had put his hands to work on this. For him, the thought brought fresh tears to his eyes. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over Elvis's number. He knew he had to go to Graceland. He had to thank him in person. This wasn't just about dry cleaning anymore. This was about family. The next morning, Mr. Henderson, dressed in his cleanest work shirt and his best trousers, drove to Graceland. His heart was a drum solo against his ribs. He'd delivered clothes here countless times, but he'd never actually gone in to see Elvis in such a personal capacity. Now, he wasn't just a deliveryman. He was coming to express a gratitude so profound, it felt like it might choke him. He was greeted by Joe Esposito, who recognized him immediately and led him inside with a warm, knowing smile. "Mr. Henderson, good to see you on your feet. Elvis is expecting you." The mansion was grand as always, but today Mr. Henderson saw it through a different lens. It was Elvis's home, the place where he lived, and where apparently he thought nothing of rolling up his sleeves for a friend. He found Elvis in the living room, strumming a guitar, a relaxed smile on his face. He looked different now to Mr. Henderson, not just the king, but a real flesh and blood human being who had gone out of his way, far beyond what anyone would expect. When Elvis saw him, he put down his guitar and rose, walking towards him with an outstretched hand. "Mr. Henderson, good to see you. How's Martha doing?" Mr. Henderson took his hand, his voice thick with emotion. "Elvis, Mr. Presley, she's doing better, thanks to you. All of it. The shop, the bills, you saved us. Elvis, you truly saved us." He couldn't stop the tears that welled in his eyes. I don't know how to thank you." Elvis gently squeezed his shoulder. "Now, Mr. Henderson, none of that. You don't have to thank me for a thing. We're just looking out for our own. You take care of my clothes. You keep me looking sharp. You're a part of the Graceland family. When you were in trouble, it was only right we helped you out." "You were cleaning the clothes yourself," Mr. Henderson stammered, still astonished. "The king doing laundry. It's incredible." Elvis chuckled. "A warm, genuine sound. Well, I wouldn't say I'm going to quit my day job for it. Joe and Red did most of the heavy lifting. I just supervised." He winked and learned a thing or two about silk and sequins. "Turns out it's harder than it looks, Mr. Henderson." I gained Mr. Henderson to a comfortable chair. "Now, tell me about Martha. Is she on the mend? Does she need anything? Anything at all?" Mr. Henderson poured out the story of Martha's struggle, the terror of the diagnosis, the relief of the successful surgery, and the baffling, wondrous relief of all the medical bills being mysteriously covered. He looked at Elvis, his eyes filled with knowing gratitude. "I know it was you, Elvis. Sarah said it was an angel. It was you, wasn't it?" Elvis simply smiled. A soft, humble smile. "Let's just say, the community came together. Memphis is a special place, Mr. Henderson. When one of ours is hurting, we all feel it, and everyone pitched in. It wasn't just me." He downplayed his own significant role, redirecting the credit to the collective spirit of the city. They talked for a long time. Not about music or fame, but about life, about family, about the struggles and triumphs of everyday existence. Elvis listened intently to Mr. Henderson's stories about the dry cleaning business, about Martha, about his quiet life. He saw a man of integrity, resilience, and unwavering loyalty. "You know, Mr. Henderson," Elvis said, his voice thoughtful, "when you're up there on stage, it's bright and loud, and everyone's cheering, but it's people like you working hard at doing what you do every day with integrity and pride. It's the real backbone. That's what makes this whole thing work. You keep the world spinning." Mr. Henderson, who usually only heard about his clothes, felt seen, truly seen by the king. He wasn't just a service provider. He was a valuable human being. They shared a simple meal in the Graceland kitchen. Just Elvis, Mr. Henderson, Joe, and Red. The conversation flowed easily. The laughter was genuine. It was a moment of profound human connection, away from the glare of the spotlight and the weight of expectation. For Mr. Henderson, it was an unforgettable experience, a testament to the king's incredible heart. For Elvis, it was a reminder of the simple yet profound joy of helping a friend in need, and a deep satisfaction of knowing he had made a real tangible difference in someone's life. Life eventually settled back into its familiar rhythms. Martha Henderson made a slow but steady recovery, and within a few weeks, Mr. Henderson was back behind the counter at Henderson's Hues and Habiliments, the rhythmic hum of the machines. Once again, his daily soundtrack. But nothing was quite the same. The shop itself seemed to hold a brighter energy, a subtle glow. The new paint, the sparkling clean machines, the perfectly organized racks, they were physical reminders of the unexpected kindness that had saved him. The wad of cash securely tucked away in his bank account, and the paid medical bills were a constant source of relief, a weight lifted from his shoulders forever. Customers still came, many of them the same loyal patrons. But now they often paused, a knowing look in their eyes, to ask about Martha, or to quietly praise Mr. Henderson for his own resilience. Some would glance at the back room, imagining Elvis Presley, the king, scrubbing stains and pressing clothes. The story of Elvis's incredible response became a quiet local legend, a testament to the king's character whispered in grocery stores and barber shops throughout Memphis. It was the kind of story that didn't make headlines for long but settled deep into the community's heart. Elvis, for his part, continued his whirlwind life of concerts, recording, sessions, and movie sets. But the experience at the dry cleaner had left an indelible mark on him. He found himself thinking more about the people behind the scenes, the unsung heroes who made his world run. He greeted the Graceland cooks with more warmth, asked the gardeners about their families, and spent extra time with his security team, genuinely listening to their concerns. Now, when Elvis dropped off his clothes, he lingered longer, chatting with Mr. Henderson about Martha's progress, about the mundane details of life. He'd still ask about the fishing trips, but now there was a richer, more profound respect in his voice. Mr. Henderson, in turn, would meticulously prepare Elvis's jumpsuits, each stitch infused with a quiet appreciation that went beyond professional duty. He'd occasionally leave a small, fresh, baked pecan pie on the counter for Elvis, a silent thank you. Colonel Parker, ever. The businessman eventually found a way to spin the story for good PR. But even he seemed a little softened by the genuine outpouring of community spirit. Proved to him that Elvis's connection to the common man was deeper than any carefully manufactured image. Henderson's Hues and Habiliments, once just a reliable local business, became a subtle pilgrimage spot for some dedicated fans. They wouldn't make a fuss. They'd just drive by slowly, perhaps pull over for a moment, and look at the unassuming storefront. It was a symbol not of Elvis's fame, but of his profound humanity. It was where the king of rock and roll had literally rolled up his sleeves and helped a friend, not for applause, but out of pure, unadulterated kindness. And that perhaps was the most incredible thing of all. Elvis Presley, the dazzling superstar, had shown that his true reign was not just over music charts or concert halls, but over the hearts of those he touched. His response to Mr. Henderson's family emergency wasn't just about cleaning clothes or paying bills. It was about embodying the very best of human generosity, proving that the king of rock and roll was, unequivocally, the king of hearts. And that legacy, far more enduring than any record, would live on in the quiet, grateful hum of a dry cleaning shop on a bustling Memphis street